Hi, everyone. We are
Yeah,
live.
yeah, we are.
I apologize to everybody. Tamara is out of the schedule tonight. She has had the birth of her grandchild in Manitoba right now, and she is busy looking after grandmother duties tonight, so she will not be here tonight. So I figured Tom and I got enough to talk about. We can probably fill the space, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't have a problem finding a lot of words, unfortunately.
You and me both, my friend. I don't know about
Yeah.
your week, Tom, but my week was busy. I just got home tonight after being on the road in Big Red for the last week and a half. I left last Tuesday. I went to Grand Island, Nebraska. I grabbed a combine. I came home, unhooked that
Hmm.
trailer in the yard with the combine on. Of course, most of the time when you're hauling combines from the factory, they come with no tires and everything on them. They're just a base unit, so you have to put everything on. It was important to get out of the States before the Thanksgiving long weekends because of oversized restrictions. So they redirected that combine. It was supposed to go to Swiftcurrent. They redirected it to Saskatoon. I got there last night. I lost a day in one hell of a snowstorm in North Dakota. Shut me down for oversized travel. So instead of sitting in the truck letting it idle all day long, I just shut the truck off, got a hotel room, and Zippy and I vegged for the entire day Tuesday. We rolled all day yesterday in some heavy fog. We unloaded this morning, grabbed a sprayer from Saskatoon, delivered in Swiftcurrent this afternoon. And then I unhooked that trailer, hooked back up to the trailer that had the combine on it. We put the tires back on it, unloaded that, and I got home at just enough time today to say hi to everybody. So, how was everyone's week?
Yeah, well, that's a pretty busy week, and not to mention you had some court proceedings, some amazingness, some a really healthy dose of lawfare. It seems that you had this week.
Did you just say
Uh,
in bad faith? I can't. Did you just say
no,
that?
I said yeah, exactly, a healthy dose of it, a really healthy dose.
Very much
But
so.
no, I'm hoping tonight we can talk a little bit about what's happening to Big Red, and a little bit. Brendan Miller is representing you on Saving Big Red,
Mhm.
and I read through his submission because he shared it. It's public knowledge, and I confirmed. I asked him. We can talk about your specific case and what Brendan Miller's doing to try and save Big Red. But wow, like the absurdity. So I was reading through his submission to the court, and I love Brendan. Just a really, really awesome guy. But yeah, we should get into the stuff happening with Big Red tonight too.
Well, I want to say too, in Canada, our lawyers are trained to not question the government, and that is one of the things that they're taught, and they're held to this strict code. But every now and then, you find this lawyer that decides to go against the grain, and Brendan Miller for us is that guy. He does not follow those rules. He holds people to account. I've seen him in the court with our judge and our crown dictate the law and the case law that he's questioning. He holds the judge to account. He holds the crown to account. Most people know this is a we're trying to have this order against Big Red and the forfeiture thrown out, and so this is what this whole argument is about here. The last little while, yesterday, I am probably the only person in Canada. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the only person in Canada that has been live on these Zoom calls while driving down the highway hauling equipment in Big Red, and the judge seems to be fairly okay with that, as long as my phone is on the dash and I have my hands-free device set up. I am there just primarily to listen. And that was my whole day yesterday. I sat and I listened. I listened to the Crowns. He didn't say anything. I listened to Brendan Miller give his statement, final statement. I listened to Diane Magus, my other lawyer, give her final submissions. And then when it came down to the Crown's time to give his final submissions, he said, "We're not ready, and we'd like to postpone this for a little while," which then threw things into chaos even more yet. So anybody that's not following this and doesn't know the backstory behind this, in February 2022, I was arrested. I was charged with 7 indictable offenses. My bank accounts were frozen. We were then slapped with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit at that time via Paul Champ and his lead plaintiff, Zexi Lee. My credit rating was destroyed. I have not been able to secure credit for my business. So at that time, I had Jonathan, who was working with me, driving one of my truck at that time off and on. We needed to secure a loan to get him a truck, and I could not do that as a business owner. So I did what I had to do at the time, which was then sell my truck, Big Red, to my parents and their farm for some amount. Dollars were exchanged, bank accounts were transferred, bill of sale was produced. We didn't know at that time that the Crown was going to grasp at something like this. 3 years later. And so now when it comes down to the forfeiture hearing on this, there's two different aspects. There's me as a business owner. I use that truck, and I have in my sale agreement with it, I'm allowed to keep using Big Red. It's licensed to my company, CB Trucking. It is my livelihood, and I make a living off that, but my parents own it. So then we had to introduce Brenda Miller in to represent CB Trucking, my company that I co-own with my son Jonathan, and my parents' interest in this. So we have Diane Magus, who's representing me through the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. The JCCF has been behind us right from day one. Amazing organization and based out of Calgary, John Carpe. And so that's now how the fight is. And Brenda Miller has really brought the flame, I guess, to the courtroom, and he has some amazing case law that he's representing or bringing to the table. And it's quite interesting to sit and listen to Brendan cite this case law and talk the facts on the case and how the Crown should be acting. And he's gone so far as to say that the Crown is acting in bad faith, and the Crown got really offended with that. And I felt that for quite some time anyway, watching what we watched for the last, longest mischief trial in Canadian history. It's been pretty hard to sit in that courtroom and listen to some of the stuff that has been said about us.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are.
What's funny is, I think last week it was either you or Tamara that had mentioned that Paul Bernardo's trial was 40 days. I'm from the Niagara region. I was in St. Catharines during that time of the whole Paul Bernardo and his wife. And I know people that actually knew them because, it's not the biggest area, but I just find it incredible that Paul Bernardo's trial for what he did was shorter than the trial that you guys got for mischief.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's incredible. And then obviously we know Brendan. We lived with Brendan for 7.5 weeks during the Public Order Emergency Commission. And, I never thought in my life that most of my friends would all be lawyers. I joke with Keith all the time is that, I was an extra on the TV show Suits once in like 2015 or 16. I was a guy that walked down the sidewalk in the middle of the night, and, I watched the episode. I wasn't even in the show, but, that's my exposure to lawyers, to be brutally honest. And then next thing you know, most of my friends are lawyers. And I'll say this about the lawyers, that a lot of lawyers in this country get really, really vilified. They get really, really vilified. And I see the crap that Keith, Eva, Brendan, a lot of the JCCF lawyers go through. And the funny thing is, the irony is, they get sort of mistreated by the people who are on our side. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, listen, you've only got a handful of lawyers that are even interested in being on your side. The rest of them are ambulance chasers who just want the money. And so, the ones that are on your side, be clear about that, because they've proven it time and time again. Like when Eva and all the other JCCF lawyers and Keith showed up to the convoy, to me, it was like, oh, thank God we've got legal here to help us and navigate this and to advise on this, right? And they take a lot of abuse, unfortunately. But let's go back to the POEC for a minute. I was there, you were there, Chris. We were all there when Brendan got ejected for challenging Rouleau. Yes. And the thing is, I'll tell you about Brendan. The one thing I know for a fact that is vitally important to Brendan Miller is being right.
Yes.
Having the facts and making sure you can back it up. And, Rouleau pushed him to the point where he called Rouleau out several times in the courtroom. And you know what? Finally, Rouleau, he didn't have the facts on his side. He had his emotions, like a good little liberal that he is. And he kicked Brendan out of the commission. I mean, Brendan was back by the late afternoon. But you know what? when it comes to Brendan Miller, and a lot of lawyers are tenacious, but Brendan has a particular brand of courage and tenaciousness that is kind of rare with in the legal profession. I think he gets a bone, he's going to chew on it, and it doesn't matter. He's not intimidated. He's not afraid of judges, right? And so, to his credit, and I did read through his submission in your case, very well laid out, but in typical Brendan fashion, which makes you like adore this guy so much, there's actually a lot of humor in it, where he references the crown jewel to the London Tower in his state. Yeah, exactly. So, I used to love during the commission when Brendan would go up and everybody would be like, it's Miller time, and it was like, yeah, like this is going to be good. But man, when he got, I think he got Chrystia Freeland on the stand, it was like he knocked it out of the park with her, but I will say, this guy went through hell because of the dirty tricks that all the other lawyers were pulling, and the way they set up that commission in the first place to really, really disadvantage everybody except for the government. But man, like Brendan Miller left it all out on the field. He sacrificed his, blood, sweat, and tears and his whole entire body to be right. And here's the irony. He was right on his opening submission on the first day, right there and then, when he talked about the fact that the government did not abide by Section 2 of the CSIS Act.
Nope.
And he said it's basically game over. Like on his opening submission, he said, you're going to hear all this crap. But the fact remains, they did not meet any of the conditions in Section 2 of the CSIS Act, and therefore this should never even happened. And of course, Justice Mosley agreed with Brendan as well months later. But yeah, like you're lucky that you've got Brendan in your corner just specifically on that. But unfortunately, you've got other lawyers. They've worked really hard for you too. But I think Brendan's only allowed to operate 100 days in Ontario.
Oh,
as a lawyer, because he's licensed in Alberta. He's only allowed 100 days in Ontario.
Well, it's like I said in the beginning there, the lawyers are conditioned to not fight the government in this country, and it's evident in that. And as much as I've seen so many lawyers work really hard on our side, there's still that softball kind of mentality where, we don't want to disrupt or make anyone mad. We have to work with the Crown and work with the judges, and I understand that, but oh boy, I could say so much more. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Maybe I'll save it for a book, Tom. Should I write a book?
I think you should. Listen, just so everyone knows, I've written 3 of them. It'd be great if we didn't live in a TikTok world where nobody read books anymore.
I've got somebody to me a little while ago.
I got my doomsday plans I need to start dealing with. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Somebody is one of the people that I work with, and said I really would be interested in being the person that writes the book and talking to you and I thought, well, Tamara's done an amazing job. You've done an amazing job at writing books and telling the story, and each of us have a different perspective on what we would put into our stories and our books. So I think mine would be a little bit different. I would probably give a little bit of background into some of the stuff that's going on, with a lot of the stuff within the movement and a lot of the stuff that people don't know about. Not necessarily expose a bunch of crap, but just to make sure and shed light on any questions. So we've got everyone has an individual story to tell, and we need to tell that.
Yeah, I think you should write the book, Chris. I really do. Like, at the very least, it's cathartic. And I had to learn the word cathartic from people telling me it's the fancy way of saying it's therapeutic.
Yes.
And that's really, really what it comes down to.
You know what therapy's been for me, though? I got to tell you, sitting in that truck for the last week and a half, trucking, doing 2 trips to Nebraska and back, and every stop that I stop at, whether you're in Canada or the U.S., I'm always approached by somebody that knows the story of Big Red, can't believe the Big Red's sitting there right in front of them, getting pictures taken, and then listening to people tell their stories from the dark era throughout, the word that we won't mention, because we're on YouTube on this right now, so we have to be a little bit careful how we word our words now. I hear those stories still to this day, and I meet people that it affected in such a positive way and brought them out of a dark place. And so, just being in that truck and representing, I represent that truck, and I represent the movement that some of that truck stands behind. So, that's a proud moment for me. I'll never, nobody can ever take that from me.
Well, I mean, I think they've all but admitted it. The only reason that they want to take Big Red from you is because it's symbolic. And
Symbolic.
that's it. Like, this is the only justification, and to be clear, and I've been seeing sort of the chats and the conversations with Brendan Miller. And, this is so far outside of the ordinary for seizure of or forfeiture of property. Like, this is like saying, like, let's look at the facts a little bit for a second here. You sold the truck to a corporation, okay, in June of 2022. Okay, so the convoy happened right after that, at the end of June. You sold the truck. You sold it. It was no longer your property. It wasn't until May of 2025 that the Crown gave any indication whatsoever that they wanted to forfeit that truck. So for 3 years, you didn't even own the truck.
No,
almost 3 years, you didn't even own it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because it's so symbolic, there's keychains of this thing, and there's lots of things. It's so symbolic. They want to take it and destroy it to crush the spirits of Canadians. That's the only reason. This is our government who wants to crush and destroy this vehicle because it is so impactful, so symbolic, and that's the only reason.
The symbolic measure of that truck means more to me than just Freedom Convoy. Yesterday was the 22nd anniversary of me owning Big Red. It was the 22nd anniversary. I picked that truck up from Custom Truck Sales in Regina, Saskatchewan in November 26th of 2023. 2003, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest loan I'd ever secured in my life. I had a loan with Kenworth for 5 years. The payments were $2,890 a month or something like that. And I had to endure, any repairs that come along with that, with making that payment every month. So I trucked that. We made some miles.
Yeah.
And in that, Jonathan was 7 months old. He was the first passenger in the passenger seat when I pulled that truck out of Custom Truck Sales in Regina back in the day. An amazing dealership, by the way. Most people know Bob Wertz. You're probably going to see this because Bob's a huge supporter and watches all this. Bob was the ultimate salesman, but he did a really bad job in selling me that truck that day because I never bought another one. I've bought a bunch of used trucks since, but that was my one and done. Once I seen that truck and got to drive that truck, she was mine. I've raised a family in that truck. Jonathan's little winter boot marks on the dash are still there to this day. Kenworth has this plastic-ish interior. It's like a vinyl coating over top of the plastic dash. And he used to sit in the passenger seat with his little winter boots and kick up on the dash, and I'd give him trouble for it back in the day. But now that's a part of the truck. My little dog that I had for the better part of 17 years, I put to sleep in the passenger seat of Big Red. We loaded a grain cart in Iowa. We spent our last night in South Dakota, and he was 17 years old. He was really tired. His name was Buddy, and his bladder and his bowels were shutting down on him. And I phoned the vet, and we hit Swift Current about 7 or 8 o'clock that night. And I pulled right into the parking lot with Big Red, and she jumped up in the passenger seat, and she stuck the needle in him right there. And his collar still hangs from the visor on the passenger side. And he's been gone 14 years or 15 years now, something like that. I think Zippy's 14 now, and I waited about a year before I found Zippy before I wanted another dog. And when Zip's time comes, there'll be 2 collars hanging up there because those 2 dogs just put a lot of miles on with me and Big Red. And yeah, therapy, right? Therapy for the last week and a half sitting in the cab of that truck visiting. It's just been, I'm excited to get home. I come home, my wife is here, my family's here. Jonathan's working in the shop tonight when I pulled into the yard, and there's supper cooking upstairs right now. And I couldn't be happier to be home. But when I'm out trucking in that grill, there's just like a peace and serenity that comes over you, and you love every minute of it.
Yeah, and it's important to talk about this because during the convoy itself, I remember when the government was talking about going after parents who brought their children to the convoy because their children were in the truck with them.
Yep.
And these are kids that had very much the same life experience that your kids had growing up in the trucks. This is this is what these families do, and it shows you how disconnected from reality these government organizations are, where they were threatening to remove the children from the parents, the custody of the parents, because they felt that they shouldn't be at the convoy, they shouldn't have been in the trucks, they should have been in school, because hey, the government knows more about parenting than you do, clearly. But they were talking about euthanizing all of the dogs, all the pets that were in the trucks. Like, these were the threats that we were constantly dealing with from the police and bylaw and all this crap. Like, they started targeting children and talking to us actively about euthanizing the pets that were in the vehicles with truckers. This is Canada, right? This is so your story about your kids growing up in that is a common story within the industry. And I do think you should write the book and talk about that and tell that, because like you're one family amongst thousands across this country that do it. And I just saw in the comments about the ostriches, like, there's no lengths to terrorizing the public and demoralizing the public that this government, various levels of government, go to. And I always say this, is that we can be disgusted with the federal government and the provincial government, but at the end of the day, the people who always execute the conditions that are set by the Trudeaus of the world, they're always executed at the local level by the local police, the local schools, the local everything. And the UN has its hands reaching right down into the municipalities, and the evidence of that, one example is what Maggie Braun is doing with Kickley, fighting back against ICLEI, where she's educating municipalities and saying, do you even know where this policy came from that you and your taxpayers have to pay for? It actually came from an NGO and the UN, and you morons are paying for it. And so she educates municipalities, and when a lot of them have woken up and went, really? We didn't even know that. We thought it was sanctioned by our government. Nope. Yeah. But this is what happens. People at the top make policies, but they don't actually execute it. It's the local people that execute it against the public. And that's where this is why I always say, localism, or, local action has a national impact or a national consequence. And that's from, I think, Steve Bannon talked about that. That's not my original idea, but it's true. To push back, we have to push back at the local level, not at the federal level so much.
My father is part of the rural municipality, and Dad will watch this video tomorrow morning. I don't know if they watch it tonight, but they'll definitely watch it tomorrow when they're having their coffee. And Dad and I have had many really in-depth conversations about this. My father's probably one of my best friends. And of course, he parented me growing up, and he was hard on me because he needed to be hard on me to instill those values. And now you reach a certain level with your parents, where you become, you're growing them and you're trying to mature them, and then you become a friend. And my father's probably, I speak to him daily, even when I'm out trucking. He's part of the rural municipality. He's a counselor on local RM. And some of the stuff in our conversations we've had, well, the government's sanctioning us to do this, we have to follow this rule. And I'm like, Dad, who do you follow? Do you follow the constituents that put you in that seat, or do you follow the government that controls you? It all comes down to that local level, and it's as simple as that. As soon as you remind them of that, then they realize that they're the ones that have the power, and they've been able to change a few things within that structure, which is exactly what has to be. And it happens on a local level. Get involved with your local school boards, your local councils, there's so many different things that you need to get involved with. If you want this country to change and change for the better, then you need to get involved, because right now, that is one of the most thankless jobs you will ever take, is running for those elected seats. But if it's exactly why we are in the position we are in right now, because nobody wanted to step up and take that. And those people that took those positions are people that don't deserve those positions, and that put us in this position right now.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And you know what? This is the reason. So, I finally got a job about 14, 15 months ago, because I was radioactive, right? Like everybody knows I got fired from teaching. And then I went like 33 months without a job, no income. I had my army pension, which, is a lot less if I was a newcomer to Canada. I'd have a Beamer and I'd be living in a hotel getting a lot of money, way more than my 25-year Army pension, right? But, so I finally got hired. 14 months, I was really, really looking hard for a job. Nobody would touch me. And so I complained about it on X one day. And my boss's wife thought, in her anonymous account, and she told Jonathan, you hire this guy, or you at least interview this guy. They found a job for me, which was amazing. But I've been working on this team for 15 months now, and we are trying to build Toto, and you can see the URL on the bottom. We're trying to build Toto to do exactly what you just said, Chris, is to have local action. And I agree. You know what? That's a great point you made with your dad, because we have to stop acting like we're in a perpetual power of attorney relationship with our elected officials. Just because we put an X beside some unknown person's name doesn't mean we gave them power of attorney, but we unintentionally do it through our actions. We don't engage, we don't go to meetings, we don't get involved. And so the political class in this country, they know that we've taken our eye off the ball. They know that we're not watching them. So they just do what they want. And now they're so drunk on all their power that you go to a council meeting, and if they don't like what you're saying, or they shut your mic off and have the police escort you out. It's like, listen, fine, we're going to create something like Toto, right? There's other things out there. There's tools. That's just the one I picked, and that's the one I've been working on for almost 15 months to try to get local action to have a national consequence. And that is the whole point. You've got to get involved locally. You can't take your foot off the gas now. This is the worst time to take your foot off the gas. We have to be doing a full-on hardcore press now. And so, I've met your dad a couple of times. Awesome guy. And between the two of you, there's a really, really strong bond there. And that's the kind of stuff, that I want to have with my own kids. It's not easy. Mine are younger and different dynamic, but that's my view with my kids has always been, look, I'm not your friend. Okay. Get that through your head right now. I'm not your friend. I'm here. My job is to get you ready for life. When you have your own family, then we'll be friends. That's when we'll do it. But, I'm hoping to get to that point, because I've been with your dad and you, and I know what it's like. Like, I've watched it. I have something very similar with my father as well. That's what I'm hoping to get to with my kids too.
And you will. It'll come. Most people know, like, I live on my great-grandfather's homestead yard. My great-grandfather, we immigrated here from Scotland. We immigrated into Ontario. My grandfather, Phineas Barber, jumped on a train and pedaled out to Saskatchewan, where he homesteaded on a quarter of land. And I am proud that I live on that quarter to this day. He raised 12 or 13 children on this farm. He raised my grandfather, and my grandfather raised my father on this farm. And then when the neighbors sold out, back in the 70s, I think it was, I was a baby. Mom and dad bought the neighbor's farm and built a house on it in the early 80s or late 70s. They'd have to correct me on that. And that was the yard that I was raised on. But I was raised on that farm, which is only 3/4 of a mile away from where I live right now. And my grandfather and my grandmother lived on this yard. And my grandfather passed away in 87. And my grandmother stayed here until she couldn't any longer and was moved into town. And then for years, this farm sat kind of, Mom and Dad rented it out, and they did a few things here and there. But when my time came to come here, I came here, and the basement was falling down, the roof was shot, and so I wanted to keep something of my grandfather's around. So we built a new basement, we moved the house onto that, and then did a whole pile of renovations, and this is where I raised my family. And
Nice.
and in my conditions with the court right now, we get a pile of snow. The first thing I do is I'm allowed to, put the skid steer on the gooseneck, drive up to Mom and Dad's yard and clean their out. My parents are in their 70s right now, and they are very mobile and very active. They're always doing something. But when it comes to, Dad pulls his old John Deere tractor out with a little bucket on it, tries to clear his yard. It's hard for him, and there's no cab on it. So I run up, and that's part of my conditions now. I'm allowed to clean my parents' yard out when it snows. I'm allowed to assist them in anything that they need, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I went a different route in life, of there's a few people in my family that did join the military, but I joined the military, and as a result, my experience with my family, like there's no homestead to go back to, like I was born and raised in Niagara Falls, between Niagara Falls and St. Catharines. And, in my regular force career in the military, I think I did, even a little bit after, I did 12 cities in 24 years, and like full moves to cities. I've lived in Toronto, there in the GTA. This is my third time right now in the GTA. I've lived in Kingston 3 times. I've been to Niagara. I had a posting back to Niagara, to the Lincoln and Welland. As a regular force officer, I got posted back to my old reserve unit, which was amazing for me. But it's really, really, really hard to set down roots when you choose a career that moves you every 2 years on average, right? And so I've always sort of longed for that place to set down roots. And I've got an amazing piece of land, in really, I won't give the exact location away, but I am very, very close to Roblin, Ontario. And I saw one night, I think the first or second episode, there was somebody from Roblin that was watching the show, and I was like, it's amazing that I know where that is, because it's a gas station. It's a gas station, but I love it, right? And I was there last weekend or 2 weekends ago with my dad, and I'll be back this weekend to the land with my dad, working on a project there. I long to just put down roots and never leave it. And my plans for my land, if I can keep it, to be honest, without saying much, family court. If I can keep the land, that's going to be the future from my kids. I'd like for my kids to be able to put down roots there and to do something, because look at the state of this country right now. Kids are looking at, it used to take 25 years to pay off the mortgage. It takes 25 years now to get the down payment.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so I'm trying to build something like what you're talking about for the future of my kids. It's not easy. It's just not easy. And hey, hopefully this $290 million lawsuit against us just goes away as well.
Wouldn't that be something? We should talk about that a little bit tonight. There is still $290 million lawsuit against, Tamara, myself, Pat, James, George, how many names? Knockers.
Yeah.
And that has all been and still in the court session right now from the downtown Ottawa lawyer Paul Champ and his lead plaintiff Zexi Lee, who was fairly angry towards some of the protesters in Ottawa. Amazing. Yeah. He testified against us in our criminal trial. That is still hanging over our heads right now for a lot of us. So it's pretty hard to go get a line of credit or a loan security for anything when you have that kind of hanging over your head. We've both all been through that the last number of years. Do you know the latest on that one, Tom? I've been trying to follow it here. I think we go for certification, something like that, in January, isn't it?
Yeah, there's that's the next stage. But basically, we tried in this last spring, we tried something in court through our awesome lawyer, great guy, and JCCF is representing us on that. I think Democracy Fund is also. I don't know if Democracy Fund.
Not on that one.
Not on that one. Not on that one. JCCF is on that one. But we shockingly failed because we were using the anti-slap tactic strategy, let's say, and unfortunately that didn't go the way we wanted. We appealed, and unfortunately we lost the appeal. And I remember understanding that the judges on the appeal were very hostile towards the convoy, right? And there's been many times several attempts to move the trials out of the city of Ottawa, but it's like not a chance, right? They won't allow that because, of course, they don't want impartiality of any kind, right? Who'd want that? But my understanding, and I wanted to say, like, this is really important because this is, I'm very proud of Canadians for helping us, because I do have those days, when I look at the crew, the elbows up crew that re-elected the Liberals, I just shake my head, right? When I think we're gaining some ground, and then They re-elected the most hated government in probably all of Canadian history. But then, you know, a large percentage of the, or not percentage, but a large number of people, we got nailed with a $20,000 legal bill for the appeal, which really shouldn't have even made it this far to begin with, because this whole lawsuit is, the guy is literally trying to invent new law through this class action lawsuit. But the public really helped us, and in 9 hours, 15 minutes, answered the call and donated, you know, their money, their time, their effort, their energy, their love, and their support, and helped us out of this bind. And that is, those are the moments where I think, okay, this is amazing. This is the Convoy people. This is the Canada that I loved, right? And oh, that's awesome. My cousin and Andrea are watching from Vancouver Island. That's awesome.
You know, I'll add this too, guys. Just put in the comment section where you're from. I love seeing that wherever you're coming in. Anybody in Ontario right now? Bracebridge, Ontario is where my family immigrated to from Scotland. So in Bracebridge, Ontario, just outside of Barrie, is where you will find Barber family headstones from my great-great-grandparents are buried there somewhere. And I've seen pictures of it. I've never been there. I've drove kind of relatively close, but I just thought I'd add that in. Sorry about those. Back to the conversation about.
Yeah, and so, you know, the public responded. They paid the bill for us. And I think everybody recognized that, listen, if this certification goes through, if Paul Champ's class action lawsuit gets certified as a class action, he's going to expand his lawsuit to start including what he has termed as significant donors. Yeah. So we're all on the hook. We are still all on the hook, not just the 20 of us that are named right now, because if you actually look at the submission to the court, it's got a whole bunch of Jane and John Does. Yes. They're just waiting for certification. Then we're all going to be on the hook. So the sooner this thing gets killed, the better. But it looks like every time he gets a few steps forward, he gloats all over social media. And what really drives me nuts is when Paul Champ gloats about freedom of expression when talking about Palestinians. Anyway, drives me bonkers.
A little bit of a double standard there. As most people know, probably. Well, I don't know if most people know, but we'll just tell you. There's approximately $5.5 million sitting in the escrow account right now. And most people know that the Give, Send, Go was set up. GoFundMe was set up first, and that reached around $10 million, and it was just huge dollars. And they released $1 million into a bank account, and that bank account was immediately seized. We were able to get a couple fuel payments out of it before they seized it. Toronto Dominion Bank froze that, under a government order, and didn't have any accountability behind it. And then GoFundMe wanted to then donate the rest of that money, that $9 million, to the charity of their choice. And because of social media power out there and what we were doing during the convoy, we were very vocal about that. You need to get a hold of GoFundMe and make sure they know that this is not what they should be doing. GoFundMe was then forced to then give that money back to the donors. And but that $1 million remained in that bank account, and it was frozen, and it stayed frozen. Our bank accounts were frozen because of it. We had to relinquish that money to the courts and the escrow to open our bank accounts up. Other convoy members had their bank accounts frozen as well, and they had that option at that time too. You can relinquish the money that was in your bank account that was donated as a result of Freedom Convoy, and your bank accounts will be unfrozen. Some of us chose to do that, some of us did not. That is our choice as a human being to do that. You can either comply or you can't. In our choice, we decided to. The Give, Send, Go was then orchestrated after that. And that soared to what? It was over $10 million, but it was American, wasn't it, Tom?
That I don't know. I never heard that detail. What I know is that the money was collected in the United States. In the moment it got transferred into Canada is when Doug Ford's Attorney General had it seized. The moment it came into the Canadian bank, though, was the point of seizure.
We'll go back on that a little bit. Jacob Wells, the owner of Give, Send, Go, was aware that the government in Canada was trying to get their hands on that. And so what Jacob did was he hit the refund button on it before the government of Canada could get their hands on it. And because of that fact that Jacob Wells, he's an amazing man, a good Christian organization, Give, Send, Go. Every time I hear the word GoFundMe and somebody says me a link to donate, I always say, you did it in the wrong account. You need to redo that in a Give, Send, Go, please, and then I will happily donate. I will not give money to GoFundMe after what I witnessed in Freedom Convoy and how government oriented that organization is. So Jacob Wells hit the refund button on that money. And the result of that was Paul Champ adding Jacob Wells and Give, Send, Go to the lawsuit, suing him for $300 million as well. So what we didn't know at the time was the Canadian processing company, Stripe, which was the processing company that would take your money out of your bank account and hold it and then put it in ours at that time, had $3.5 million sitting in it. And at the time of the freezing happened. And so when you add up the $1 million that was in the bank account, there was some money in e-transfers, and there was also the Stripe account, totaled around $5.5 million. And that money is still sitting in an escrow account right now in the Ontario court system, frozen until what one of our lawyers likes to call it 4 different levels of freezing. And it will be a long Tamara and I had this conversation a little while ago. What happens if that money is ever released? And I said to Tamara, I don't want it. I don't want to be accountable to it. Right now, there's an organization, a not-for-profit was formed called the Freedom Convoy Human Rights, and I don't know, it's a long name. And that would be the organization that would house that money. And we are all board members of that. I think I'm the vice president, Tamara's the president. And as board members of that not-for-profit, we are not allowed to touch that money. That is not our money to touch. That is the Canadian donors that donated that money. And it's our job to delegate where that money goes. And I honestly, personally, don't want to be responsible for any of it. I want nothing to do with it. But in the event of somebody getting that we don't want to, I will fight to keep that out of those hands. So I still think we go back to veterans groups, don't you?
I kind of feel like I would like to see the money go back to the donors themselves in the amount they donated, and then let them make a decision, because you know what, times are really tough now for everybody. And if you get a reimbursement, then I think you're entitled to it. And if you want to redonate it to someone else, then by all means, please, go ahead and do it. But I think the best thing is give it back to the donors.
Finding out who those donors were, and those numbers would be, anyone that had their money returned from donating to Convoy would you weren't part of that seizure theft, so that one money went back to you. But finding out who people were that it went to, it's there's a couple different ideas. One was the veterans groups, but you have to pick a veteran group that we can get behind, and some of those are government affiliated, and we have to be really, really careful with that. So obviously building those for vets. There's been lots of talk about where it goes. Clean drinking water for some Indigenous reserves. There's so many different options out there. I don't know if we'll ever see the day when that money's released to actually have the decision on where that goes. No, I don't want any of it. I've been working for a living for the last number of years.
This is the hard part, right? Like I've never been comfortable. Like my first job, I was a dishwasher at 13. I had a paper route at 9. I've always earned my own money until, that time between getting fired and finally getting hired to help build Toto. I've never felt like that since I was a young child, to be that dependent for other people on money. It doesn't feel good. It certainly doesn't make you feel like you're a fair contributor or provider to your family. I was lucky that I had a pension coming in, and most of my pension actually went to my kids. So it's difficult, but I don't naturally gravitate towards taking. If I'm going to get something for money, I want to be able to give something back in return. Right? Like I write a lot. That's how I contribute to Canadian society. I work on Toto. That's how I try to contribute. I ran in the election. That's how I try to do it. I don't take stuff for free. But we're going to be getting into a situation, I think, if this economy keeps getting worse, I don't know what to do with that money. I really don't. It's
They said it would be upwards of, years down the road before we even figure this out. And then, we'll just keep. You know what I did with my Facebook a little while ago? So there was a notification that came up on my Facebook that said, Chris, would you like to monetize this? So I hit monetize, and I thought I went through the steps and the procedures and all that. And I got a little bit of money out of Facebook for all the people supporting me on here. So I'm really gratefully appreciative of that. But I was thinking today as I was driving down the highway when I seen this notification, I thought, you know what? I'm going to phone my local SPCA in my hometown and find out exactly what they're lacking right now. And I will go where I have to go and get what they need and go drop it off. As most people know, I'm a huge advocate for the SPCA. I have 2 shelter dogs right now outside. Zippy's not a shelter dog. I don't know why. He should be. He needs a lot of help. But
yeah. Like I for me, another cause. There's so many people still under lawfare,
yes.
Just from not even just the convoy, but also from pre-convoy. When all these ridiculous tickets were given out for not masking and all the other crap. The JCCF, I don't know how many hundreds, probably thousands of clients they've had since all this pandemic started. It's incredible to me. All of the people that the JCCF have helped. So for me, maybe that's an option. Like, lawfare is real. I mean, nobody knows that more than you, in Tamara, and many of the others. I mean, look at Shabavizi. The number of lawyers he's gone through in the past. Like, people can't afford the lawfare, and this is why the saying is the process is the punishment. Yeah. Like, they're just being spiteful. They know for a fact, even on the case of Big Red, they know for a fact they don't have a chance in hell. But you got to pay for that. The JCCF has to get donations. I've been to your fundraiser. We went out to Saskatchewan last year. 650 people showed up to help you. And, you and pay some other legal bills for other people. So I don't know what to do with the money. And I agree with you. I don't want to be the one controlling it either. I don't know how to do that fairly. But maybe, maybe some legal stuff.
Yeah, there's been a few different organizations helping us out through this. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms has probably been the one that's looked after me. It's looked after the one for the lawsuits. The Democracy Fund is the other one. They have helped out Tamara and so many others. I mean, they helped out with a lot with the Coots boys. The Democracy Fund was a lot behind that. The Justice Center's fighting daily in different cases all across this country right now. It's amazing to go to the JCCF website. I think it's jccf.ca or the democracyfund.ca, and go check out the different people that they're helping out right now fight this lawfare across this country. There's so much going on right now. I think out of 187 people arrested in Freedom Convoy, JCCF helped a majority of people through that, and so did the Democracy Fund. So James Bauer right now, who is obviously seeking political asylum in the U.S. for lawfare, the Canadian government is coming after him the same way that they came after Tamara, myself, Pat, others. James decided to go a different route on that. The Democracy Fund is helping him right now with that legal plight. I talked to James for about 2 hours this week and had a good conversation with him. The amount of stuff that poor guy's facing right now, if the asylum doesn't go through, he faces a lot of time in jail. And judging by what we have just been through the court system, he didn't have that help at that time, so he would definitely been buried in lawfare, and he took the best option out as far as I can see. I support James 100% in what he's doing right now. So many people in this movement have been so easy to quick and turn on people and try and condemn them, getting so much more attention than the next person. You got to remember that we were all standing in this one at one time, and if you choose to go negative on this and try and attack other people because of the way they stand, you are not helping the situation. So I go back to this too, right? And I think you do, Tom. If the more people talk in this movement and the more divisive and angry and bitter they get at certain people, that is the exact reasons why some of us distances ourselves from other people.
Yeah, and that's a fair point, because you know what, I've left every single group that I belong to except for one. And that's a chat group that I'm in with you and the lawyers, and we had to keep it just for the legal stuff. But I've left all the groups that I was in because I just couldn't tolerate the infighting.
Yes.
And you know what kind of does frustrate me, honestly, because there's been a lot of crappy stuff said about all of us. But the moment, what I find particularly frustrating, the moment I get in there and actually even defend myself, I get attacked for being divisive. So it's like, okay, you know what? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Don't engage. Don't get involved in the stuff. You know, like Joanna always says, you know, you wrestle with the pigs, you're going to get shit on you. So don't bother, right? Don't bother. Focus on the positive. Focus on, you know, the things that elevates everybody. That's what I try to do, but I'm infallible. I'm a human. Every once in a while, somebody hits the magic button, the easy button, and you know, I gotta punch back a little bit. There's you know, I gotta draw that line between, I'm not gonna just be a punching bag and have you, you know, be engaging in defamation. And I have to have some respect for myself and actually stand up for myself. Now, do I have to do that on social media? Not really, because social media, it's not. I'm not here on social media because of Tom's ego. I'm here to spread the, you know, truth and to learn and to find out what's going on and to be active and somehow in the best way I can to be positively impacting things. Like I always talk about these three circles. So if I speak somewhere, I always talk about the three circles. You've got the circle of interest, okay, circle of control, and the circle of influence. So control, influence, interest. Interest is the one that everybody spends 80% of their time and energy on, which is all the stuff that you can do nothing about. Okay, and I always joke. I joke all the time about the lizard people in Antarctica and wherever on airplanes. So that's the reality: is don't spend your time on the circle of interest. Like, monitor it. Hey, it's out there. But you know what? Justin Trudeau never answers my tweets, or Mark Carney, or Poilievre, or Bernier. None of these people ever respond to my stuff. So why am I giving that 80% of my energy? But I can have my circle of influence to try to get control. And if I can influence it and control it, then I can participate in it. Other than that, I don't really need to care about the other stuff that, like I said, Mark Carney doesn't listen to me. No. Mark Carney never goes on social media and shitposts about me. You know, Mark Carney has never held a New Year's Eve Twitter space just to spend an hour in the first hour of a new year bashing Tom Marazzo. You know, Mark Carney never purchased, you know, tommarazzo.com and rerouted some pretty crappy things about me to tommarazzo.com. Mark Carney never did that. One of our own people did that.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to engage in that stuff. I've got my kids to think about, and I got my friends, my family, you know, I've got Joanna to think about. I'm not, like she says, you wrestle with the pigs, you get shit on you.
And I think most people know in my social media, I love being that internet troll. I was talking to a guy today in Saskatoon, you know, Jason, he came up to me, just a huge supporter, but he said, I remember the days when you used to post stuff on social media just to get a rise out of people. And I said, well, I kind of still do that. I've learned better behaviors and how to do it now, but there's nobody out there that likes to get down in the mud and wrestle with the pigs like Chris Barber on social media. I do that. But the one thing you have to remember is there's people out there that you're never going to alter their mindset. So, and a lot of them are internet bot trolls. So you can have fun with them, and you can make. I do this with my mother's okay with this. She's given me permission to make the mum jokes every now and then. I find them humorous. Somebody can tell me they wish death upon me, and I will say, well, that's not what your mum said. That is my mentality on social media. But I also know who I can fight with and who I can't, and who those people are that are just grasping for attention. So you acknowledge them in some sense, and then that gives them validity to keep going, right? When you ignore those people, you kill those people so much more. And I know the difference between fighting with Joe Bot on Facebook or TikTok compared to fighting with somebody that's just looking for attention or clout chasing. And I've found so much of that the last while. I think if this guy calls me 4 more times, if I haven't answered the first 5th call, then I'm not going to answer.
Yeah. He knows you're on a live podcast.
I'm hauling his load tomorrow. I know exactly what he's calling about to see if I'm still on schedule to haul his load tomorrow. I am. Yeah. I'm heading out to Alberta with my step deck trailer to pick up a load.
Yeah.
Might have to tarp it though. It's a
Yeah.
lot of lumber, and I usually don't haul lumber. I said I don't usually.
Yeah.
I haul equipment. I don't have to tarp it.
Do you know what though? There's going back to trolling and stuff like that. So I have another rule of mine, which is if you don't post your face, your picture, thank you. She's awesome. I just got a refill. It's bubbly, not booze. But if I don't get if you're not putting your picture in your real name on there, if you're not going to risk your reputation trolling me, then why should I give you even a second thought? Why should I give you any of my time or energy? I don't care what you have to say. If you're not going to put it all on the line like I am, because my response is public, it's known to me, it's tied to my reputation, it's tied to my character. So if you're not going to give me the same level of risk, why should I bother engaging with you? So I don't engage with people that I mean, I do once in a while. Somebody will hit the easy button, but you know what? If you're not going to do it, then why should I? If you've got nothing to lose, why should I play your game? I'm just not going to do it.
Sometimes it's relief, just having that battle out on social media in the comments section. But like I said, you need to know who you're fighting with, and those people that are just, I get some people on, especially TikTok the last while, they've been posting some pretty horrible stuff and lies and slander, defamation. And if I acknowledge that, or if I try to come up with an excuse or try and tell my side of the story to those ridiculous lies, then I'm actually feeding into that. And as soon as you start defending yourself, you're losing. And that is one of the most important things you need to know. Most of these people on social media with dogs and cats and birds as their profile pictures, that's number one, that they're a bot. And those are the ones that I like to fight with, because I know that there's just some nonsense behind it and it's not a real person. I'm not giving them any clout or validity when you have one follower. I'm just having fun with you.
Well, and even if I do, sorry, I don't know what happened there, but even if I do respond, I'm not responding back to the person. I'm responding back to everybody else watching the conversation.
Yes.
I'm going to have a little bit of fun every once in a while too. And I mean, my natural inclination is not to walk away. It's to fully engage. But I have to force myself to walk away and say, it's not worth my energy. Like I want to get in there. I'm not going to lie. I want to punch back. But what can I do? I have to just rise above it all somehow, bite my tongue, my tongue, right? Hold my nose. I got to hold my nose.
Sometimes you can post something, and Twitter is usually probably the most vicious cesspool I've ever seen in my life for trolling. I could literally put a picture of a sunflower on there, and people would wish me death. But that I take it as a grain of salt, and I don't take it to heart. I know that it's just some coward hiding behind a keyboard, and I can't tell you how many people over the years of trolling online and fighting with people online, especially in the trucking industry, somebody thinks, you know what, if I ever run into you, I'm gonna teach you a lesson in person. Well, where are you gonna be? I'll be there too. And 99% of the time, they always back down before you get there. I'm 6'4" tall and 260 pounds. So I'm a pretty big guy. I can hold my own, but right now I have to keep the peace, and I'm not allowed to do that. So I have to.
It's hard, but I gotta say, Chris, you're pretty funny. Like some of the comebacks, it's like
I call them a clapback.
It's like buddy.
Facebook needs that same thing like TikTok has, where you can reply to a comment with a video. I love those, and I find my fun.
I've seen some of them, and I'm just thinking, like, buddy, just stop. You're out of your league. Like you're in a lightweight class. You're in the ring with a heavyweight. Like, just stop.
How far I will go to finish this.
Exactly.
We're missing a very huge part of the program tonight, and that is Tamara, and her daughter Sierra just gave birth. I'm trying to find out exactly where it was here. Where was the comment section? What did they name the little one? She arrived at 9:59 last night, and she is Manitoba, and she's very healthy. I don't see a name here in the comments when she texts me back, so she's a gorgeous little girl. So congratulations to Sierra, Tamara's daughter, and Tamara's probably watching right now. She's looking after other grandchildren, so congratulations on the new arrival.
Yep. That is pretty awesome. We've seen the pictures. I wouldn't share them because it's family stuff, but we've seen the baby pictures in the chat group. Yeah, it's exciting. I think it's her 6th grandchild.
Is it 6?
Yeah, 6th and third granddaughter.
I see it here.
So-
6 pounds, 10 ounces, 20.5 inches tall. I don't see a name in there, so she's doing really well though, and Mama's doing really well. So that is awesome news. And the judge gave permission to give the probation officer permission to let Tamara leave Medicine Hat, go to Manitoba to assist with her daughter having this child, and look after the other children. So. Yeah, we're missing a vital part tonight, but she'll be back next week, hopefully, ready to fly, and she'll give more updates at that time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was posting how tired she is, and she forgot how exhausting it is to look after little ones.
Well, I'm sure I'm getting close to that. I hope. My daughter's down in Maryland right now. She's got a boyfriend down there. If most people know, she took off. What was it? A year and a half ago, I guess, and she moved down to Maryland out of a whim, and she just wanted to try something different, so she became an au pair, and she was 20 miles north of Washington, D.C., and she met a pretty cool guy down there. He's a firefighter, and he kind of swooshed her off her feet. She came home here for a little while, and was hanging around home, and she missed him too much, and she disappeared back to Maryland again. So she'll be home here fairly soon. I think she flies home on the 6th of December, so next week she'll be home. And Jonathan and his girlfriend Cooper are doing really well. I don't know when that will, maybe wind up with a ring on a finger, and maybe I can look forward to some grandchildren. I think that's my quickest expectation for grandchildren going forward. So, but I've encouraged them both to wait. They're still pretty young.
Yeah. My cousin I'm pretty close with. He lives in Niagara Falls. He's a grandfather already. He's 4 years younger than me. And I gotta say, I feel pretty good teasing him about it. I'm a long way off from being a grandfather, thankfully. So my daughter's only too young. So I'm very lucky. But you know what? Something you had said earlier about being in the States and people coming up and talking to you. I gotta say, I'm very appreciative of the fact that, like, I'm not. I've never once been anywhere in public where somebody came up and knew who I was. And to me, that's pretty amazing. Never once. Actually, other than once I was with you, actually still doing the convoy. As I'm walking down the street with Mick Jagger. Anyway, it was, but no, I think it's a great thing, right? Like, people don't put the face to the name. They hear the name, but they don't put the face. And when I'm out in public, what I'm always worried about is some moron who's going to decide that now he's courageous enough to come and try to accost me in front of my children. And it'd be a big mistake. It'd absolutely be a big mistake. But, I'm thankful for that I don't have that kind of recognition. Like, I can go anywhere. And it's funny because I could be on a podcast. I can, go on. I'm on Twitter all the time. But the two things never connect, and I'm very grateful for that because, like I said, I'm always worried that I'm going to be out with my kids, and the one who doesn't like me is going to be the most courageous.
That is the hard part, and thankfully I only see the hate on social media in the comment section from the cowards hiding behind the keyboard. I've never seen that in public. I've gotten a couple fingers driving down the highway here and there. Mm-hmm. And those people too are not the people that will come up to my face. They're catching you as you're driving by. But I do see the support, and what amazes me every day, driving. Last night was kind of different. I was in the fog from, basically south of the U.S. border to Saskatoon last night. Heavy fog the entire time, so nobody knew where I was or even seen me. But today in the daylight, I would say about probably 1 out of every 4 vehicles is horns, lights flashing, waving, and that's every day. So that's a huge amount of support out here, and I pay attention to that. I try and get my hands up to wave back as quick as I can. It's always awesome. Cool. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And you got to pay attention to the support more than you pay attention to the hate, right? The hate.
Well, we got a lot of hate from, what's her name, Deanie or Dee Dee or whatever during the commission every day, who screamed at us and called us terrorists every day. And then on the final was it the second last day, she actually dressed up, came into the commission, and sat in our chairs, and sat there and just like one crappy remark after another until they finally kicked her out.
Yeah, I found that she actually came into the courtroom one day and she sat right behind my wife and I, and was looking over my wife's shoulder at what my wife had on her phone. You know, you're allowed to look at your phone in the courtroom, and we and then was broadcasting that. So we had her removed from the courthouse that day. I just remember at the POEC it was hilarious because Dina Sharif, she would stand on the edge of the curb with a wagon, and she had a crying baby sticker on there, and she would yell and scream and yell horrible things at us. And I believe I walked out for some fresh air at the POEC, and I was at the top of the stairs up there and looking down on her, and she was looking at her phone or doing something else. And usually every time I was near her, she would start yelling, horrible names and that. But this time I caught her with her guard off, so she wasn't paying attention. So I had to make sure that she knew I was there. So I yelled at the top of the stairs at her, and then the heckling started, and then I had to giggle. I woke you from slumber.
And good old Brendan Miller, who was like, "Oh, I'm going to go bum a smoke off her," and went down and started chatting with her. She was nice to Brendan, right? Yeah. But no, like I've always found that really interesting. I'm not a combat veteran, so I try to put that out there all the time. I'm not a guy who went to war. I didn't go to Afghanistan despite trying. I don't know how many times, but there's logical reasons why I didn't end up going. Now I'm thankful I didn't go, but at the time, it's hard. Like I knew 13 people that got killed in Afghanistan. And there's guys I work with, and now all of a sudden I'm standing at attention as their bodies are touching Canadian soil in Trenton, right? Like that stuff is real to me. And, I didn't deploy to Afghanistan. I missed out on Somalia. Believe it, I was in the army during Somalia. I missed out on Cyprus, Bosnia. I tried to go to Sudan once, Afghanistan a bunch of times. But, to be willing to go and put yourself into harm's way for this country, you always expect that you're going for a virtuous reason, that the government actually knows something. And of course, this is idealistic thinking, right? And we signed this thing called unlimited liability, which is the only profession in Canada. The police don't even have this, but it's the only profession where you can be ordered to your imminent death. If it's a lawful order, it's in combat, and you don't have the right to refuse if your commander tells you to go charge that machine gun and take it out. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, when you're willing to do that for your country, for your family, and then to go to the convoy and to have there was a lot of veterans there, but not to get a lot of support from the active military, and then to be called a traitor and an insurrectionist. We followed the law. We worked with the police. We worked with lawyers. We worked with judges. We worked with the city manager to be safe and responsible all the time. To be called a traitor by your own country or an insurrectionist, it just goes to the brainwashing level of the effectiveness of the mainstream media and how they impact the soft brains of Canadians. To sit there and accuse somebody who was willing to literally go and lay down their life for this country, or at least put yourself into harm's way, to come back and to be going to Ottawa to protest a violation of your rights and to stand up for the rights of your fellow citizens in a way that the military is not doing, and then to be called a traitor for it.
It's a condition of society, though, and Canadians are so passive, mm-hmm. and they have been brainwashed by legacy media in this country. And I'll go back to convoy too, and even this last election time. We have trade wars right now with China and China and India, and those two trade wars are crippling our agriculture industry right now in this country. But what would the government want you to focus on? That evil man in the United States in the White House, which he's not. And just spend a little bit of time in the US. Things are going pretty good down there right now. I didn't see any of that hate rhetoric from anyone that I spoke to. It's just purely Canadian right now. And because the media has told you that and the government has had the media focus on that, it's no different than Convoy, and how anyone that was involved in Convoy walking the streets down there, seeing the atmosphere and felt the pride and the patriotism in this country, but media told citizens a different story, and those citizens are so heavily conditioned in this country. I have neighbors here that are ranching neighbors that watch legacy media all day long on rewind in their house, and they think Donald Trump is the most evil thing in the world, and they are completely indoctrinated and brainwashed. And it is sickening to have conversations with these people. There's no middle ground anymore in this country when it comes to a conversation with somebody who's on the left or the right. You either are yeah, I go back to that saying. My grandfather voted Liberal in the 80s, and but he would have conversations and debates with his conservative friends in the local coffee shop, and they would agree to disagree, but they would still show up at that coffee shop the next day to continue those conversations and still carry that dialogue on. And when one of those people in the community passed away, the funerals were large because of how much respect those people had within the community.
Mm-hmm. And look at Eva Chipiuk. Like, this is kind of her, since the Convoy, her whole mantra has been dialogue over division.
Yep.
That's what she's always fought for. And yet what happens? She gets vilified constantly and attacked on social media. This is where we on the right try to bring facts and reason and logic and respect to the conversation, and the left brings emotion. Yes. And they have no depth. Like, there's no bench on their team. No, there's nobody on second string there. It's like that's it. But I just saw one of the comments. They were asking me what I thought about this ridiculous idea of having 300,000 public servants join some civil defense force in Canada. And David Redman, who wrote the foreword to my planning book, him and I have become really good friends. David and I are. We're trained to the same level, but his experience was drastically different than mine in the military. Great guy, love him, but I got to see a really, really interesting side of him recently. And he's in Edmonton, Alberta. Got to see this great side to him. We were going back and forth on email about this whole idea of having a 300,000 civil defense force. It was pretty funny. It was a side of David I didn't know he had. I loved it, but I'll tell you. He agrees it's a pipe dream. It's not, you're not going to get people to be part of a civil defense force with 5 days of training and put a weapon in their hand or a drone or something in their hand and think that they're not going to hurt themselves for somebody else. Like, this is,
what are we fighting? What are exactly. We fighting? Yes. I walked the Canadian Grave Cemetery in Normandy. I walked that. We went and toured that. I spent, I don't know how many hours walking up and down those rows, looking at that, Winnipeg, all the different armed forces divisions across this country who fought and died on the beaches of Normandy. That was surreal. That was emotional. That was a fight. We had a Nazi person taking over the country, and World War II was out and happening. Right now, we have a government that's dictating war over, whatever they feel they want. And I am not about to send my 22-year-old son overseas to fight a war for some other. I'm not going to let it happen. It's a different circumstance now. What are we fighting? We shouldn't be fighting.
Yeah, I thought it was. I watched something on social media yesterday that I just can't believe. So the ADL in the United States, they're saying that America First, like the title, the slogan, America First, is actually anti-Semitic. No. Like, this is the garbage that comes out from people with these agendas. It's like, you're saying that nationalism or America First or Canada First is somehow anti-Semitic. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's completely illogical, and it certainly doesn't bolster people to take your side. It drives them away. But you know what? I like Trump. Like, I wasn't sure about him the first term, the first time he was the president. I was very, very hopeful. I wanted him to win the second term. What he's doing inside of American borders, I think it's great. Like what he's doing inside of American borders, his domestic policy is outstanding.
Mhm.
I gotta say, I was pretty shocked on his stance on a couple of things on the foreign policy, like bombing Iran, going after Venezuela. I listen to a lot of different people. Tucker Carlson's take on what's going on with Trump on his foreign policy, it's worth listening to. You don't have to agree with me or agree with anyone else, but you just go and get a broad sense of what's really going on. It's okay that you don't agree with every single thing that your leaders do. You can like 10 out of or 9 out of 10 things, but fundamentally disagree with one, and that's okay. That's a democracy, and it's hard. Democracy is a very hard thing. But I think that the West, listen, I work with 2 Ukrainians that I care deeply about. I work with a Russian. I care deeply about her. I work with people from all over the world. And I got to say, this whole Ukraine thing, $25 billion Canada has contributed to the Ukraine war. Okay, $25 billion. Now, when I joined the Lincoln and Welland in 1990, I was still 16 years old. Okay, I was in my 17th year. We were still training for the Cold War. We were still training to go after, the Cold War militaries. They were training for a couple of years to go after us. This didn't end, right? And so Ukraine does not belong to the United Nations. It doesn't belong to UN, to NATO. We have no moral obligation to go in and spend $25 million keeping a war going that should have ended 3 years ago, two years ago, if it wasn't for the Brits ruining the Minsk Accords. But we shouldn't be funding this thing. We should be Canada first. We have Canadians living in the streets in tents, 2 million Canadians going to food banks.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, but how many university tuitions would that be for a Canadian-born kid? $25 billion. How many hospitals could that have built? How many
water bombers?
Water bombers. Exactly. Listen, I care about the Ukrainian people just as much as I care about the Russian people. It's the politicians that are setting the conditions for the death. But at some point, turn off the money and maybe the fighting stops. You're sanctioning Russia, turn off the weapons to Ukraine.
How many wars are what world conflicts right now are happening right now that people aren't aware of because media didn't tell them or the government isn't? This is exactly what's going on in this country right now.
Yeah, exactly.
What they want you to.
Yep, and that's the problem, right? And we have this moral obligation, we think. But then we have a moral obligation to everybody, don't we? Can we just pick and choose the ones we have a moral obligation to save or not? So this is my thing, because Joanna's from Poland. I've been to Poland twice. She grew up in communism. I get it. As much as I can get it, I get it. But in my view, I know this is getting way off topic, and I'll bring it back. But at the end of the day, Canada first. Let's sort our own crap out. And then maybe we can help other people. But let's get right back on track. I mean, our debt, we've never, 41, 42 million people, how the hell are we sustaining $1 trillion in debt? Right? Every single time they print more money, it makes us more poor. And the evidence is all around us. It's all around us. So
we have children right now that will never be able to afford. We have families in this country right now that can't afford groceries, let alone a mortgage payment, and are stuck in this system right now. And the system is breaking us. And then what's the government's next excuse to try and bail us out of this? Universal basic income. I've said this on my social media platforms before. All universal basic income is going to do is make people more lazy. And I know people will not like to hear that, but I say what I mean. If you want to make a living, you go work for it. And the government should not be, the more dependent you are on government, the more government has control of you. And that's exactly what the government wants right now. And that's not what you can't think.
I agree with you, but I tell you, when it goes right back to this, the thing that really upsets me more than anything, it's not the government's money.
No,
It's ours. It's
feel sorry
ours.
for that.
Like they're what's the saying from Top Gun? They're writing checks that their bodies can't cash. Well, we're the bodies. We're the bodies that have to pay it back. Carney doesn't pay it back. Trudeau, Freeland, none of those people pay it back. We pay it back. And every time they run up these budgets and they spend more money that they're not reinvesting back in Canada and giving to us, we're the ones who have to not only pay back the principal, but the impossible task of paying back the interest is on us too. So when they like to use the catchphrases, oh, well, you're stealing from our grandchildren's future bank accounts, that's true. They are. They really are. They never asked us if we wanted to support this war in Ukraine. Never asked us at all. So, I think it would have been appropriate to do a referendum and ask the Canadian public, is this a war that you want to support or not?
Yep.
Ask us, and maybe instead of forcing us and not giving a choice, set up a give, send, go for Ukraine, by the government, and let them do some sort of a fundraiser for Ukraine. Why let people have the choice to donate or not?
Absolutely.
Right? Don't steal it from us and then tell us, by the way, you're paying this back. We've taken your principal, and you're also going to pay the interest on the loan on the money we gave to another country that we never asked you if you wanted to participate in. And now, and to take it one more level, since World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the GWAT, wars get longer. Technology gets better. Wars get longer. So my 9-year-old, okay, if this continues to get as bad as it's getting, and it's going the way it's trending,
mm-hmm.
there's a good chance that by the time my daughter turns 18 years old, she could be drafted by Canada into this war.
World War III.
She could be drafted into World War III, right? But it's not going to be Carney's kids, Poilievre's kids, any other politician's kids. It's not like the days of the king went onto the battlefield and was there with his sons.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, I'm going to draft your kids to go fight the war that I started because I couldn't use my words like a big person and do this, right? And so this is what really, really upsets me, is that one, we have to fund a war we shouldn't have any business being a part of. Two, they're going to draft our children, and make no mistake, Canada's drafted in the first World War I and II. It almost ripped the country apart both times because Quebec didn't want to participate in that. And I don't blame them for that, but it almost ripped the country apart at the time. And they still went ahead and did the draft towards they needed to replenish the numbers on the battlefield. So Canada did draft in World War I and II, and a lot of people don't know that. Okay, so, Brandon Meyer, yes, you signed up. I signed up. I volunteered. I knew what I was getting myself into. But I'm not willing to let the government take my kid to go fight a war on the other side of the planet. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's the Europeans' problem. It's Poland's problem. It's Poland's problem. It's Hungary's problem. It's Eastern, Central, Western Europe's problem.
When we have our own problems here to worry about right now, and that's out of control government right now that is spending our children's grandchildren's money, and eventually that has to be kind of come to account here. And I don't know. I'm seeing it right now. I don't have much high hopes right now. I think this needs to, this talk about Western independence over Ottawa. I said this on a show I was on the other night. I'm like, can we not just separate from the real problem, Ottawa? I've seen good people all the way across this entire country, but all the troubles in this country right now originates from one major city in this country, and it's Ottawa. That's where the bureaucrats are. That's where the policies are made. That's where all of this division has come from. They've been dividing us in our provinces for many years. They've divided us on color, race. During COVID, or that word, they divided us in our households, and I think there has to be some accountability somewhere down the road. I don't know if there ever will be or not, but it's definitely needed.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna say one more thing about Ukraine, and I'm gonna walk away because that's not the point of this at all. We should be talking about Tamara's grandchildren. I'll say one more thing. They're targeting Christians. They're arresting journalists. They've stopped elections. Their men are not allowed to leave the country if you're fighting age, and I think that's up to 65. You're not allowed to leave the country. So we should sacrifice our economy and our youth to go spread democracy in a country that doesn't actually have it. To save what in a country that was a former mortal enemy during the Cold War of Canada, and we have no moral obligation or even legal obligation to get involved in that. And I still say that it is, unfortunately, it's Eastern, it's Europe should contain that problem. For now, we have Carney to deal with.
Oh, and we do.
Yeah,
I think it'll all work itself out in the end. When Canadians are waking up, I think more Canadians are waking up daily with this right now. I'm seeing that more evident, and the harder the government pushes, the more people realize exactly what's going on, and truth will always prevail. So, I promised my family I would give it an hour and a half tonight. Like I said, I've been gone for over a week and a half here, and I can smell the ham cooking upstairs, and I'm craving for it. So, we're gonna shut her down for the night, there, everyone. I think we did pretty good, Tom. We missed Tamara. She kind of keeps us in queue, keeps us grounded in schedule, but we just kind of went where we wanted to tonight, and that was a good chat. So
always is.
I appreciate everybody tuning in and keep an eye. Once again, our thoughts are with Tamara right now and her new granddaughter in Manitoba, and she'll be busy grandmothering for the next little while, and it's pretty cool to see. So thanks, everyone. Ruby, you're going to have to kick us out of this because I don't know how to run the live and the on live. So everybody have an amazing week, and we will see you next week. Tamara will be back. We don't know who we're going to have on next week, but guaranteed Tom and Tamara and I will be here. So
yep.
Thanks, everyone.